Greeting, loved ones. Today we're going to have the first talk of a two-part series on the cycle of violence. So to help get these messages out, please subscribe to our channel so you won't miss a single episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit the like button and please share these messages with others. You never know, just by doing so you could save a life. When domestic violence exists in a relationship, it starts slowly, then it builds until there's an explosion of violence. Physical violence is never the first violent act. There's always psychological abuse with a mixture of patrimonial and economic abuse before the first violent act. Within the growth of abuse in a relationship, one can see a cycle that emerges. Domestic violence may seem unpredictable, simply an outburst related just to the moment and the circumstances in the lives of the people involved. In fact, domestic violence follows a typical pattern, no matter when it occurs or who it involves. The pattern or the cycle repeats, and each time the level of this violence may increase. At every stage in the cycle, the abuser is fully in control of himself and is working to control and further isolate his victim. Understanding this cycle of violence and the thinking of the abuser helps survivors and people who help survivors recognize that survivors are truly not to blame for the violence that they have suffered, and that the abuser is the one who is responsible. There's a lot going on during the cycle of violence. There's the setup, the abuse, the abuser's feelings of guilt, his fear of reprisal, his rationalization, his shift from non-abusive and charming behavior, and his fantasies and plans for the next time he will abuse. So I'm going to give you a quick explanation of each of these parts. So abuse can be emotional, physical, sexual, psychological, economic, and social. There's also now new abuse with stalking and social media stalking and things like that. So remember, the first time that there's a hit, a black eye, a slap, a kick, or a punch, that's not the beginning of abuse. That's the declaration that there has been a lot of abuse going on already. So guilt. A non-abusive person experiences guilt very differently than an abusive person. A non-abusive person feels guilty about how they have impacted the life of the person that they've harmed. So if you've done something to somebody, you feel guilty about it and you're concerned about the other person. They don't feel guilty, or these guys who are violent, they don't feel guilty or sorry for hurting their victim. He may apologize for his behavior, but his apology is designed so that he will not face consequences or be held accountable. The goal of the guilt stage for the abuser is to reassure himself that he will not be caught or face consequences. And then we have rationalization. In this, the abuser makes excuses and blames the victim for his behavior. For example, I was angry, I had a bad day at work, I came home and the house wasn't clean. You didn't clean the house, you didn't do the dishes, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so it's her fault that he got angry. Common excuses usually revolve around the abuser being intoxicated or abused as a child. However, alcohol use and being abused as a child does not cause the abuser to be violent. Common victim blaming statements usually focus on the victim's behavior. For example, if you had the house clean, I wouldn't have had to hit you. Or if you had cooked dinner on time, I wouldn't have had to hit you. The goal of this stage is to abdicate responsibility for his behavior. And then there's the, quote, normal behavior. And during this stage, the abuser may use different tactics to achieve his goal to regain power over the victim. The abuser may act as though nothing happened. Everything is normal. And this can be crazy making for victims, as they don't understand how he could pretend that nothing happened. 3 hours ago he was beating the crap out of her, and now he's like acting like it never happened. If the victim has visible injuries, then she's going to have to explain to other people how she got them. And this is designed to maintain the normalcy in the relationship. The goal of this stage for the abuser is to keep the victim in the relationship and present the relationship as normal. And another tactic the abuser may use after he's chosen to be violent is to become thoughtful and charming and loyal. the kind person with whom the victim fell in love with. He may take her out to dinner, buy her flowers, and convince her he will change. This can be a huge incentive for women to stay or return to the abuser because they believe that this time he really will change. And I'm going to insert something here. In the mind of a victim, and I was a victim of domestic violence, they love this person and they don't want to leave the relationship. They want the violence to stop. So what they're going to do is, in their mind, they're going to believe what he's saying, and that's when they return to them. So another stage is called fantasy and planning. Abuse is planned. In the initial stages, an abuser fantasizes or has a mental picture of the next time he will abuse the victim. And during the fantasy and planning stage, the abuser is the actor, the producer, the director, and the star. The abuser experiences his power from activating this fantasy. And the planning phase details more specifically what the abuser will need to have and do and to do in order to abuse his partner. They may spend minutes or hours or days fantasizing about what the victim has done wrong and how he's going to make her pay. So if he's angry at her, he's thinking what she's done wrong, and he's going to fantasize on how he's going to make her pay. Most often, he will fantasize she is having an affair. And most abused women do not have the time, energy, or interest in having an affair. However, it is the most common accusation because she can never prove that she is not having an affair. And then there's the setup. This is when the abuser puts his plan into action. He sets up the victim. Here's an example of the cycle of violence through all its phases. Man abuses his partner. After he hits her, he experiences self-directed guilt. He says, "I'm sorry for hurting you." What he does not say is, "because I might get caught." He then rationalizes his behavior by saying that his partner is having an affair with someone, and he tells her, "If you weren't such a worthless whore, I wouldn't have to hit you." He then acts contrite, reassuring her that he's never going to hurt her again. "I'm not going to do it again. I'm sorry. You did this to me. It's all, blah, blah, blah." And he then fantasizes and reflects on past abuse and how he's going to hurt her again. He plans on telling her to go to the store to get some groceries. What he withholds from her is that she has a certain amount of time to do the shopping. So when she's held up in traffic and it's just a few minutes late, he feels completely justified in assaulting her because, quote, "you're having an affair with the store clerk. He has just set her up." Maybe some of this sounds familiar to you. If you are a victim of violence, I really, really, really want you to know this. Listen to me. I was once where you are. So you need to understand it's not your fault. You are valued. You are loved. You are intelligent. You are beautiful. And God does not want you to suffer violence. He wants you to live free from violence in peace and tranquility. And there is a way out. Abuse is not love. If you're a victim of violence or you find yourself in a dangerous situation, call 911 immediately for help. But if you're not in danger, you can reach out to somebody. Please reach out to somebody. There are people out there who will help you. And if you recognize this behavior in someone you know, then do something. Say something. You are called. We are all called to be champions for justice. And those who suffer violence need those who love them, those who don't even know them, to step out and reach out to them and give them the courage and the help that they need to leave before it's too late. You could be the person who saves a life. And the question is never if you will encounter a victim of violence. The question before God is, what will you do when you encounter them? This series is dedicated in honor of Gabby Pettito, a bright young woman whom the world has lost because of gender violence, and to all other women and girls and children who are victims of abuse and are missing. To help get these messages out, it's so important. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single one. You can learn about this so you'll recognize it, so you can help somebody, so you can share it with others because they might need this information. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit the like button. Share these messages, please, with everybody. You never know. Just by doing so, you could save a life. Tomorrow, we're going to do part 2 about cycles of violence. So until then, God bless you.